Hi, this is Ed Fortunato, and today I'm going to give my Week 12 presentation for Aviation 325 on the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area special flight rules area, the SFRA. Next slide. Washington, D.C. is a very heavily congested and trafficked area. From an aviation perspective, you've got Reagan National, you've got Dulles, and you've got Baltimore, Washington. All three are Class B airspaces. Plus you've got a lot of smaller municipal airports, and then of course you got the nation's capital, the White House, the Pentagon. So in 2003, not after 9/11, but in 2003, they established the Special Flight Rules area around the metropolitan area, and I'll spend some time talking about the procedures to fly in and out and the qualifications for it. It's codified in CFR Part 93. And although it's an established procedure, you still need to check the NOTAMs if you're flying in and out of it, because on special occasions they do change from time to time, and as an aviator and pilot in command you need to be familiar with the updated requirements for it. It's an FAA required course, so if you're going to fly in and out, you can go online. It takes a little bit of time, an hour or two at the most, and you fill out you read the questionnaire, you answer the questions, and they'll produce a certificate. And that gets you put into the FAA database that makes yourself qualified to fly in and out of the SFRA. And like a driver's license, you need to carry it if you're flying within 60 nautical miles of the airspace. Next slide, please. So here's a depiction off the sectional of the SFRA. It might be a little difficult, but you can see the blue line that goes all the way around it with Reagan National in the middle. So the SFRA is 30 nautical miles from DCA, Reagan National, and it's from the surface up to, but not including, 18,000 feet. So it's pretty restrictive. It's a giant block of restricted space, and like all of this stuff, it's got special procedures. If you're flying VFR, and that's what I'm covering today in this class, it's just the VFR procedures, you're restricted to under 180 knots inside of it, and if you're within 60 nautical miles, you're restricted to 230 knots or less. Next slide. So here's a breakdown of the SFRA. There are three different sections. You've got the east, the south, and the west section. I usually fly in this area. I fly out of Manassas Regional, KHEF. There are 8 gates around it. You can see them here, like Woolley, Paleo, as they go around. And those are your entrance points in and out of the SFRA. Kind of like Class B airspace, you need two-way radio communication, you need a transponder with mode C. And ATC will issue a discrete transponder code, even if you're flying VFR. You never ever put 1200 in the transponder. They will give you a discrete code. If you are flying just within the traffic pattern, you'll squawk 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are some municipal airports right on the fringes of the SFRA, and they'll have their own discrete identifier and squawks that you'll flying in and out of those. The Leesburg Municipal Airport, as an example, it's 1226 as you're flying out, it's 1227 as you're coming back in. But that's what it looks like. Next slide, please. In addition to the SFRA, if you ratchet it down, you've got the flight restricted area or freeze that goes around the nation's capital. That's specifically to protect the White House, the Capitol, the Pentagon, and the buildings around there. Being qualified to fly in the SFRA is not the same as being qualified to fly into the freeze. If you want to, or if you're going to be flying into that area, you need to get FAA and TSA approval. It's done in person. It's purely a secure measure, and it's got you're vetted. You'll be issued a PIN, and that's what restricts the traffic in and out and makes sure that they have the nation's capital safe. Is there a question?
Yes. What final protective measures are there if the freeze is violated?
Well, that's a good question. They're protecting the nation's capital. And I just happen to have pictures of the Air Force National Guard that flies, and they'll escort people out if they're lost or they're not communicating. And if they need to, worst case, we've got the NASAM system established around Washington, D.C. to take out any impending threat. Next slide. So in summing it up, The SFRA is established around the Washington, D.C. area. It's to manage congested traffic, protect national security. It's an FAA required course. You'll get a discrete squawk, just even flying VFR, you never squawk 1200. Fringe airports have specific procedures and they're listed online. And the freeze requires additional validation and vetting if you're going to be flying. So fly safe, and that concludes my class.